Hi, hello, my name is Paul Burston and this is my channel Book Draw. For those who don't know, I enjoy looking at queer fiction and occasionally I create little images out of the books that I review. Today I am looking at a shortlist for the Polari Prize. So the Polari Prize has actually been set up since 2011. I only just recently found out about it. I know everybody's talking about the Man Booker Prize, which is a great prize and very interesting. I'm personally less bothered by the kind of prize-driven agendas with literature, but when I came across this one, I was very keen and interested because it's a UK-based award for debut novelists who are interested in LGBT themes. So I thought, why not do a little shout out for this prize and some of the nominated authors that have been put within this. So I'm going to take you through my kind of gut reaction to the 6 which have been shortlisted. They will be announced over in October, and what I've kind of trying to do for myself is because I don't want to commit to having to read 6 books by October. I mean, I could do that, but I'm too much of a mood reader, and basically I just want to try and draw a bit of these ones which have kind of been highlighted as really good books and introduce them into my diet. So if you want to read along with me, I'll allocate kind of 1 book per month, but those are ones which I'll try and focus on over this next period. That's partly the reason why I don't like knowing about shortlists and long lists, is because it kind of drives you towards certain books, which I think is great in terms of highlighting some, but it feels like it's this other collective unknown group of people who I have kind of no attachment to, who are going, these are the books you should be paying attention to. So what I usually do is just kind of sit back, watch what everybody else is saying about those books, and I do love watching a good prize review or shortlist review, and there are loads out there, because when people start actually reading them, you can then kind of make a decision and you kind of draw a bit of an insight about those books. But with this one, because it's kind of lesser known, I thought, well, my channel's about queer books, so I might as well champion it. So if you want to, take a look down the list below. I'll order them about into what I'm likely to do over the next few months, and I'll try and read them. But I love a good buddy read. I do it through Voxer usually. So even if you're not someone who is making videos and a creator, that doesn't matter. Excuse me. I've done it in the past with people who don't do that, but they want to just talk about books, and that's totally cool. And I'll kind of create a little group around Voxer, and we can just have a chat around a book a month. And if you don't like the order which I've done it in, but one of the titles really stands out and you want to read them real soon, get in touch, because I'm very flexible. This is totally a fluid thing. I just want to have a chat about a book and do it with some other people if you want to, because that would be kind of cool. It's really nice to actually, it draws out different things with reading, but I don't want to overcommit myself, so I'm like, I will try and do a book a month. I think that's a kind of achievable goal for myself. Anyway, so just going through the books which have given me kind of a gut kind of feeling in terms of what I'm excited by. I will go from least excited to the most excited and the reasons why. So the first of those is Elmet, which is by Fiona Mozley, and the reason why I've just been I'm less excited by this is just because it has been so talked up by everybody else that I feel like I've practically read the book already, and because so it's I know that it's going to be involving a kid called Daniel who is living with his daddy and his sister, and they want to have a kind of isolated life experience. And there are these other people who are trying to claim where they live or how they live, and I think it's about kind of family relationships and his sexuality slightly, and I'm just like, I grew up in a rural area, and I like, not much happened. I'm not sure if I care too much about this story in general. I'm sure the writing's great. As a debut novel, wicked. I feel like I've kind of lived the experience vicariously through other people on BookTube, and nothing in anyone's reviews has made me go, oh my god, I really, really want to read this book. So that's why it's just, for me personally, one which I'm less excited by, but it's now available on Audible. I'm not advocating for Audible at all, but it's only like a 7-hour listen, so it might be one which I might just put on my headphones once I've got a credit and give a go through that way. So the next one, which in my order of preference, is Transmission, which is a memoir by Alex Bertie. And this is also to say, like, I am interested in all of these. That's why I'm going to be reading them. It's in terms of like a kind of casual, okay, yeah, that's interesting, up to a really, oh my god, I want to read this book, this sounds ace. But this is Alex's memoir, looking over the last 6 years from transitioning from female to male, and his story of coming out to his friends and family, tackling hormones, dealing with the healthcare system. I have like explored a bit of trans narrative in the past, and I'm kind of looking for narratives which are beyond that, just that transitionary stage, and just about kind of living stories, because I feel like I've read and listened to some of that transition narrative quite a bit, and I don't think that's the only story that someone going through transition or who has transitioned has in their life. There are lots of other interesting things that happen to that person, regardless of which way round, and I'm more curious about that story instead now. I feel like I've consumed some of those transitionary stories, but I'm curious also because this is based on real life events, and also this is a YouTuber, so I'm kind of gonna explore that as well. And I just watched Alex's introductory interview, and he's pretty fine, but also like very engaging, lovely person as well. So I feel like I might be exploring that a little bit more as well. So there we go. So the next one is called A Little Gold by Allie Rogers. Now I think A Little Gold is the name of the key character, but because just from what I've read, it doesn't seem like the key character is named, or sorry, the protagonist of the story. But it's set in Brighton in 1982, and it's basically about a boyish girl's adolescence growing up, who forms a relationship with this elderly neighbour called Peggy Baxter. I can't even read my own notes. And it seems to be that kind of feeling a little bit isolated, facing a chaotic family, and for some reason she has this kind of oasis and solitude through this little tree which is in the back garden. To me this sounds like something that Russell from Inks and Paper would be really interested in, just because of the older female character, or like Simon Savage. I'm less interested in this kind of domestic growing up thing that seems to be cropping up more and more. But I'm curious just because it's based in the 80s, and I'm more interested in that as a kind of period of history and time, having grown up and lived it. So part of me's interested, less interested, I don't know, like I'm not like, oh my god, I really, really want to read this, but I'm curious about it. So the next one is one which I'm really quite excited for. It's called Pansy Boy by Paul Harfleet, and it's a graphic novel, and I'm aware of Paul Harfleet as an artist who has done some various different things around Manchester, predominantly focused on this narrative around the pansy. So he goes to places where there have been acts of violence against people who are predominantly gay, I think, but I don't know if any kind of homophobic attacks that have happened. He's planted pansies as a kind of a healing representative in those spaces, but also a kind of call to action of why are these acts of violence happening out in public. And he's done this up and down the country, and now he's produced it as a graphic novel describing this story and trying to create this change. So just as someone who's based more locally, I'm really pleased that his work has progressed and moved into a graphic novel, and I'm hoping to see some maybe a bit more insight to his backstory and learning more about his work. And also, graphic novels are ace and easy to consume, so I'm quite excited for this one, really pleased to see it in this list, and looking forward to checking this one out. The next one, I feel a little bit wrong for being so interested and kind of curious about this one, but this one's called Carnivore, and it's by Jonathan Lyon. So this is actually about a young man with a debilitating invisible illness. I'm going to have to read this, called, I'll get this wrong, I apologise, fibromyalgia, I think? Fibromyalgia. It's some invisible illness, but he basically becomes quite self-destructive with this illness that he's got. And it leads to violence, sex, rape, prostitution and drug abuse. And something kind of self-destructive in myself was curious about this character and why he gets a buzz from hurting people and how that works. This might be like really perverse of me to be curious about this type of individual who takes enjoyment from hurting others. It's not something I personally identify with, and I was talking to some other booktubers. They've had comments recently where I'm seeing that like I don't have a tendency to pick up really joyful, nice books. I have a tendency to pick up darker books, and I don't know what that exactly says about me, but I do find these type of things like I get a sense of a buzz from getting into these other stories, from the safety of being able to read them. And I like thrillers and I like horrors. I do love comedies and dramas and everything else, but I'm a little bit dark in that sense. Like I enjoy being in a safe space and kind of getting myself scared. And that might be ridiculous to other people, but I'm okay with it. Like I don't mind putting myself into a situation as long as I feel and know I'm safe. Then that's I'm happy. I'll go on a scary ride. I watch the scary movie, and I will like the suspense of wondering when that next jump is going to come. And I feel like this might be a bit of a thriller, and I haven't read a proper thriller for ages, so I'm hoping that would provide that kind of not need, I don't need it in my life, that's really wrong, but will provide that a little bit of frivolity, but oh god, I might be saying something really, really bad, and this might be a really awful book, but so it took my interest, which might sound really sensational and really wrong, but yeah, the hook worked for me basically, personally. And then finally, the one which I'm most kind of excited and curious about is one called Maw Cellinis Island, and this is by Sarah Day. My handwriting is atrocious, I'll just check that. Yeah, Sarah Day, I believe, I have written it down. But so Francesco has a memory of his father and a reminder in his head to never give up, but he's rounded up with a group of other young men and taken off to the island of San Donio. And from what I glean from this, they're trying to kind of put together a bit of a revolution, and there appears to be a bit of a love triangle thing going on, where he's got a strong bond and friendship with this one guy, and some other guy's a bit jealous of it. But then there's this third character who's female, who seems to be going for a bit of Francesco, and the family are saying, no, you don't want to get involved in that. I'm less interested in the kind of love triangle drama, or whatever that would be, kind of cubic love dynamic that's going on there. More interested into this idea that a revolution is occurring, and those kind of power tensions. And it sounds like there's a bit of narrative going on around like family's involvement with what is happening around you, and those who are allies and supporters, and those who create resistance and tension in that. And I just thought, on a more political level, this one sounded more interesting and a bit more ambitious. And so out of the 6 of these books, this book in particular is the most appealing to me personally, and so I'm most likely to pick this one up first and consume it quite quickly out of the bunch. But what I will be doing over the course of like the next 6 months, I suppose, 6 books, 6 months, I might whiz through a couple of them quicker than that. We'll just see what happens. I am going to take the Peg approach. So Peg really recently put up a video which is going to be looking at the Booker Man Prize. And she has actually got a gridding system for herself, where she is taking different aspects of the book and giving them scoring between 0 and 5, and there's 5 areas. So potentially a book can score up to 25 points effectively. And so she's going to be marking them and giving them this rating. And so I'm totally going to adopt and steal Peg's approach, crediting to her. She's changed her name recently, but you can check her out at Reading and Knitting on the Porch, and I'll add a link down to the video so you can see it, and her scoring system. But for this short list, I will use this approach and talk about it in my wrap-ups, just in terms of how these particular books felt to me under that criteria. Basically, that's loosely what I'm going to do over the next 6 months. And if you want to get involved, it would be lovely to share the experience with other people. And I'll just keep on updating you as it goes along, how it's been going, and using that Peg approach. But this was initially my gut reaction, that I'm most excited for Maw Cellinis Island. I think that's probably going to be the most interesting book. But we'll see if that stands to the test of the time, and I'll update you once I've read through all of them and go, actually, it was totally right, and or no, that book sucked, and this was the book that was really for me. I hope that's been. I hope that's all made sense to you. I feel a bit like I'm having a ramble today, but I will see you all again real soon. Okay, bye.